is a follow-up of some of the projects that I've been doing. This project is that very leggy ficus that a customer brought to me, and it was so badly overgrown that in the last 9 months I air layered from 2 branches these 3 plants. These are all part of the same tree. You can see that the leaves are the same. So they were air layered and separated a few months ago. So they're growing okay, they're growing quite well. But I didn't take off 2 other air layerings because they didn't have sufficient root. So rather than spoil it, I left it on for another few months because it was winter and it wasn't making very much root then. So let's see what's going on here. And hopefully there should be a few more roots because I want to take it off so that I generate more shoots from the old wood. So let's see what's going on here. As I've mentioned before, ficus are very easy to air layer. They root so easily, it's almost, incredible. Okay, I haven't cheated, I'm just going to see, but I'm sure there will be some root. Okay, I'm not going to leave it on too long. There are some roots there, but knowing ficus, even if I separate it with that amount of root, I'm sure it will take. So rather than wait forever, I'm going to take this off. I haven't got my Felcosectors with me, so I'm going to use my new scissors. So I'm going to take that off and put that up. So I get about 5 trees. Now this one also, I haven't had a look, but I'm pretty sure that there should be enough root on this one. So again, let me just cut it off from there. Let's see what's going on here. You notice that I've used bubble plastic rather than ordinary plastic. It generates more heat, and this one is very successful. Look at the lovely roots there. All these lovely roots have been generated, so if I stick it in a pot, I will get 2 new trees. So this is what's happening there. These were just pieces. See, I just stuck a large branch there. Look at the root coming out from there. It just shows how easy it is to make ficus cuttings. This is not from the same tree, this was another tree. I just stuck it in that sphagnum moss and they've all rooted. Another one, look at that beautiful root there. So they've all rooted. So it just shows how easy it is to root the ficuses. So I've got it down to a stump like this. I don't want it to grow too big, so I'm going to prune it even harder. By taking the tips off, I'm going to force new buds to come from lower down. So this is going to be a nice short tree with lots of short branches. So instead of being a leggy tree like that, I've now reduced it to this size, so it's going to be a nice round tree like that. So this is the progress of this tree. I won't show you potting up this because this is so easy to do. So that is the follow-up on that. While I'm talking about ficuses, let me show you. This is the famous Ficus elastica, the household plant. And I did an experiment because, like most house plants, this belongs to a colleague of ours. I won't mention the name. And it was growing so leggy that it was looking very unsightly. So what I did was I decided to air layer the top. And this was an experiment I think Tibor did. And he put a flower pot rather than put a plastic bag. So let's see what's happening with the plastic bag. It's not looking that happy. But I know from experience that it should produce some sort of root. There are some roots there, you can see. It's dried out a bit, but there are roots there. So I'm going to pot this up and follow the progress of these as well. I'm going to cut all this off so that it doesn't draw too much moisture, so I'm going to pot that up. So these are all for potting on. And because I took the top off, this is the general principle of all plants. If you keep letting it grow ad infinitum, and don't take the top off. They will do nothing but keep going taller and taller. But because I air-laid the top or took the top off, you see what a lot of new branches it has produced. Look at it, all over the trunk there are new branches. If I were to continue doing that principle, if I take the tips of all these new shoots, I will generate even more ramification. So this is a general principle with all plants. The more you keep tipping it, the more branching you get. So normally these are just grown as lanky plants, but by tipping it and stopping the top, I've created a lot of branching. Sorry if I'm teaching people very fundamental things, but there are other people who would like to learn these little basic principles. So there you go. So this tree is going to be covered with new branches right through the length of the stem. Okay, we'll now go on to the greenhouse to see some other projects that I need to follow up. So while I'm at the back of the growing greenhouse, which is our intensive care unit, let me just show you. This was the triple trunk literati, and that seems to be growing well. That's the single literati. Now let me move on to some other plants. This greenhouse, because it's getting warmer and warmer, things are growing really fast. So let me now take you to that oak project. If you remember the oak I did, I cut it from 5 foot down to about 2.5 feet. So just to show you that I'm not cheating or anything, this was the oak tree. You can see how tall it is. And look at all the new shoots that are growing. There are literally hundreds of new branches and twigs growing from the old wood. That's where I cut it off. Look at all those shoots. I can now choose whichever one I wish to keep for growing onto branches. And I still think I could even do something more drastic than that. Although I've let the leader grow, I think I should cut the leader back to here. So it may be more in proportion if I did that. So I will bite the bullet. I will pass the camera over and we'll take another shot. So here I am with this great big lopper, and I'm going to chop this leader that I left a little further back. You must be asking me, why didn't I do it in the first place? I was being a bit cautious. I thought that if I cut it too hard back and if it dies, I might lose the leader. I might still be a bit cautious and not take it back. Ideally, I want to cut it back to there. But just to be on the safe side, I'll cut it back there. So I'm going to force more and more shoots to grow. So I've cut that off. All these lovely new shoots have been cut. And again, as a safety precaution, I will use some cut paste or sealant, wound sealant. This wound sealant I use because whenever you cut thick branches, if you don't use it, that part of the tree loses moisture. And when it loses moisture, the tree could suffer and you could get dieback much further back into the tree. So using a sealant has that benefit. So look at it again, all these lovely shoots. And I dare say by the end of the year, we're going to have shoots that long, and then we will be styling it almost immediately. So that's another follow-up of that project. While I'm standing here, I can see, I think this has already been aired as a project, my cedar forest. So here you are. This is the cedar forest which was aired a few weeks ago. And this is what's happening to the cedar forest. You must be wondering why there are some yellow leaves, but because cedar in the spring, they shed the old leaves when the new shoots come. So if you home in close, you will see all these new buds, new shoots coming. And when the new shoots come, like the pines, they shed the old needles. So there's nothing to worry about over there. This is not a follow-up, but this is a new project that I did. Again, I kicked myself not videoing it. This is another oak tree that I did. And this oak tree was dug up about 5 years ago, put in a pot. So I took it out of the flower pot and put it in a bonsai training pot. So that is a new project that I did. So much for the follow-up of these projects. If I find any more, I will show them to you. I haven't talked much about figs as bonsai, but we do have them. So this is an example of a very large mature fig. And at this time of the year, most people are very reluctant to cut the new growth off. But as I say, in bonsai, you've sometimes got to be ruthless. So what I'm going to do may frighten you. So, although they produced all those leaves, I need to deal with it, because if I don't deal with it, it'll get longer and longer and it'll soon reach the sky. So every single growing tip, I'm going to prune off. These are edible figs, and it is still this Ficus family, you know, like a Ficus microcarpa, which are grown as indoor bonsai, but these are relatively hardy trees. They grow extremely well in Mediterranean countries, but they grow well in the UK if they are protected in the winter. So all these growing tips I'm going to take off. It seems a bit daft, you know, you make all that growth and then you cut it off. But for the sake of the tree, we need to do it. There's a fig there, I don't have the heart to take that off, so I'm going to leave that. But literally everything is coming off. Sometimes you have to be even more ruthless and cut it harder back. So that's what I do, and you notice that at the base, these are what we call suckers. You need to deal with these as well. If you don't deal with these, the suckers will get strong, and because all the goodness goes to the suckers, very little goes to the top, and the top might die back. So it's very important to take the suckers off. Now, what do I do with these plants? As you know, Peter Chan never wastes anything. All these will become cuttings. So already I've got about 50 or 60 plants. I will show you how I'll make these cuttings, but let me just show you what has happened to those cuttings from last year. These were simply last year's. What I pruned of last year's, I just stuck in a tray, and I've got all these plants. These are all cuttings only from last year. And if I wanted to, I can even wire it into an S shape to get an F-shaped tree from these. Again, if I want to make it a bonsai with nice proportionate shape, I will do that. And again, I will take the tips off to make it branch more. So that is how I keep producing these fig cuttings. Before I show you how to make the cuttings, let me look at this plant. If you come close, you will see that why are all these little plants growing? These are in fact suckers, what we call suckers, from the base. And I said a moment ago, you got to deal with these as well. If you don't deal with these, all the nourishment goes to the top, goes to the bottom, and the top will suffer. So these have already rooted. You see, these are suckers. So they make ready-made plants. So all these will be cut off like that. In fact, because the fig is such a vigorous tree, I could even take the tree out, tease the roots out, and get them out with more roots. See, this is already rooted. So these will make delightful little plants. In fact, you can get a little marmee tree with it. Look at it, they're all rooted. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll take all these out and make plants from them. But meanwhile, I'm going to show you how we make these fig cuttings. So I can use any old compost. This, I think, is a mixture of our compost and some bark, anything open, any soil. You can even use garden mud. The figs are so prolific and easy to grow that they will grow in anything. Even if you put it in pure sand, they will grow. So don't be fussed about the soil. The growing medium is growing medium. You can use any type of growing medium. You notice that whenever I make cuttings, I use a tray that's as deep as possible. Because the deeper the tray you use, the more heat it generates. If you use a very shallow tray, it doesn't generate enough heat and the cuttings will suffer. Now when it comes to making the cuttings, I will take virtually all the leaves off, maybe leave one leaf and cut it in half. Now why do I do that? I'll tell you why in a minute. Okay, I'm doing this because I want this one, I want like a twin trunk tree. So I'll keep that. So that's how I prepared. So these have been cut off further back than the tip of the node. So I'm going to get a multi-trunk plant straight away. I can leave half a leaf or I can cut all the leaves off. Again, you've got to know your species. Certain species are so vigorous that I don't have to worry at all. Even a little thing like that I can make it root. So that's how I prepare the cuttings. I'm not even taking care to get under the node. The node is this part. Normally you cut underneath the node, but I'm not bothering because figs are very easy to root. Same with the evergreen fig, the tropical figs. Now I'm not going to use hormone rooting powder because I know it is easy to root. If I used hormone rooting powder, it will root faster. So I can do an experiment to see which roots faster, with or without. So that's hormone rooting powder. But as I say, I don't need to. So I just stick it in as deep as possible. As deep as possible. And I would guess within 3 weeks it should be fully rooted. So that's how I put the cuttings in. I remove the leaf. I didn't explain why I removed the leaves. If you leave the leaves on, can you imagine such a big leaf? Let me pick out. If I left that big leaf on here, it will draw so much moisture, it will strain the cutting, and the cutting will not be able to produce roots so readily. But if you remove the leaves, it enables the tree to produce roots more easily and not put a strain on pumping water up. And these which are already rooted, can you see all these lovely roots? These were the suckers. I can put them in little pots or little bonsai pots. And how cute is that? That would make a ready-made bonsai in a small pot like that. So these are dead easy to do. So this is how we do the fig cuttings. So this is a job that we need to do at the start of the growing season. Now, one final shot, I'll take you to established fig bonsai and we will decide what to do with those. These are well-established fig plants. And again, I need to do it to all of these. I don't know whether I have the heart to do it because it's already looking quite nice. But this plant, for instance, if I didn't take it off, it will lose the shape. So I got to cut it there, cut it there, cut it there. Some of them got miniature figs. I'm not going to touch it. You see the figs there? I will probably leave that one. Now this tree, you see how tall it is? I'm going to cut it there. So you've got to be cruel to be kind, because if you don't, this tree, all these trees will lose their shape. And of course, the benefit for us is that we will have all these young plants and young cuttings, which a lot of our customers are very keen to have. So these trees, we can't leave them forever and a day, growing ad infinitum, so we have to deal with them. And this one again, you see these suckers, they're very prone to sucker. So these suckers have to come out. They've rooted. So these are ready made. I should take it out of the pot really to take it out, because they're full of roots. Look at them. They've all got roots on them. All got roots. So some of these again, in order to preserve the shape, I have to prune them back. And these, believe it or not, were cuttings we made about 2-3 years ago. And we've got a nice little fig plant from that, and we wired it into an S again. You can see why I cut it like that. If you don't, then the shape of the bonsai gets spoiled. So even this is getting spoiled. So I have to cut that back, cut it back, cut it back. So that is your lesson in developing fig bonsai. So I hope you've benefited from that. And look at these lovely figs. They're a lovely plant to grow because they produce such a lot of lovely figs that are all edible. They're actually edible, very edible. I just noticed one at the back. I couldn't reach it again. We need to deal with all of them. See, can you see the shape? Again, completely lost the shape, so that's what we have to do. There you go. Keeping it in check.